And now your host for the 10th Annual Connors, Connor Old.
Thank you. Welcome to the 10th Annual Connors. I'm going to be your host for tonight, Connor Old, talking about my favorite movies of the year, my favorite performances in a bunch of categories, similar but some different ones to the Oscars. Welcome, a little bit of a change of pace from our usual Oscars predictions videos. I like to do this every year, like I mentioned on our 10th season of Old's Oscar Countdown, or also our 10th Annual Connors, to give you a little bit of an insight into my favorite movies of the year, some of my favorite performances of the year. This isn't what I think should win at the Oscars. And many times it shows you how different my opinions are, where some of my favorite movies aren't even nominated sometimes for the Oscars. I like to talk about that. We have a whole bunch of categories. You can see the timestamps in the description below, but the standard ones from things like Best Actress or Best Picture, but then also some fun ones as well, like Best Trailer or Best Small Part, or Best Monologue. So there's a lot of fun that we have with this episode every single year in this kind of award show. Once again, just to give you a glimpse into my personal opinions, my personal thoughts, and maybe to help you transition more into the film analysis side of things after the Oscars. I still do videos weekly where I transition more into different series where I talk about some of my personal opinions and thoughts on films, and this is maybe a good kind of a leeway point towards that. Or sometimes people ask me what my top 10 favorite movies of the year are, or my favorite performances. That's the point of this video, kind of a little mini award show. So I hope you enjoy and stick around, and don't worry, Oscars videos are going to be coming back next week, and predictions and all that good stuff. But wanted to take a break for this week here and talk about the Connors, which is still a video I love to do. So it's a long one. Grab some popcorn, sit down. If you want to hear my thoughts on individual categories, no problem. That's what the timestamps are for. But without further ado, let's get into things. Starting off with the Best Supporting Actor category. My choices are Tom Burke, Black Bag; Ralph Fiennes, 28 Years Later; Stellan Skarsgard, Sentimental Value; Benicio del Toro, One Battle After Another; and Katt Williams, One of Them Days. And the winner is Benicio del Toro, One Battle After Another. So what I'd like to do is talk about the winner last and talk about some of my other nominees, because even though they're nominees, I still like to talk about why they ultimately made the 5 in this category. And I like to do some different, categorizations. Like I know Josh O'Connor is maybe a supporting actor for the Oscars, but he'll maybe show up later in Best Lead Actor. But we'll go one by one here and go Tom Burke for Black Bag, a movie I really enjoyed with a lot of great performances. He was the standout for me. He just brings this incredible sense of live wire energy, super charismatic, kind of the way he carries himself. But he is this kind of an unpredictable force throughout the movie that brings so much energy to the very still, reserved performances with Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. Kind of that hot wire spy that maybe is not traditional for the spy world, but still poses a threat. But is so also charismatic and funny and charming as well, so you understand the appeal of him. Ralph Fiennes in 28 Years Later. I had Ralph Fiennes in here before even seeing The Bone Temple, where I think a lot of people were amazed by his performance, but in 28 Years Later he blew me away, just because you go, an hour and a half into the movie and then all of a sudden a huge legendary actor, Ralph Fiennes, shows up and he's red and covered in iodine and what's going on here? And yet he doesn't play it as this crazy madman, but rather a really empathetic doctor who's a little bit lonely, but has this kind of beautiful approach on death and life, and really is, now that we've seen the sequel, I think, in many ways, the throughput and the whole heart and soul of this trilogy. So he just continually puts in great performances in some of these genre films, and he's an actor who is really never bad. Stellan Skarsgard for Sentimental Value, I think is probably going to win the Oscar at this point in time. And I think deservedly so. He's had a great career, and I really like him in this film. It's much more of a subtler performance than someone like a Katt Williams in One of Them Days, but still equally affecting and moving. And he's kind of a borderline lead, you could say. But I thought the points of the movie where I really resonated were always with his character and his kind of a desire to be redeemed and to accept his faults, but maybe not apologize for all of them. And it felt like a real kind of true understanding of a person, not a one-dimensional person of someone who's just going to admit fault and completely be a different person, but rather someone who's the same person who can be selfish and artistic and have a point of view, but still also kind of portraying some of that empathy and desire to reconnect with his family. He has this great balance where he doesn't actually change necessarily as a person. You still see him as his faults, but you see a faulted person, a person with faults, kind of trying to get better. And it's the trying that I think is so remarkable within his performance, that he still kind of relies on some of his old ways, but it is, you still see within his eyes and with his performance style, his ability to try to reconnect. And it's the trying that I think ultimately makes that movie so emotionally powerful. Then I had Katt Williams for One of Them Days, a movie I really liked a lot, and I thought he was the funniest bit of it. Really, just that whole kind of payday loan scene of him, warning the girls to don't do it, and his kind of continual poppings up. He's an actor who's always great when he's used. He's an incredibly funny comedian as well, and this aside, and along with Benicio del Toro, I think are the funniest performances of the year. So I had to include him here. It's one of those performances that is never going to get nominated for an Oscar, but is going to be a movie I think I'm going to rewatch and always go back to. Man, I love Katt Williams. He's so great. He's this great little spark of joy within the film, and has so many amazing quotable lines from the film, so I had to include him here. But my winner was Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another, because I think he is the ultimate distillation of why the movie ultimately works. He has the funniness of so much of the film. He has so many great laugh lines. A small one that I love is when Bob is always asking about what time it is, and then he responds back, I think it's 8:30, like the actual time, not understanding the kind of games that's going on between him, Bob, and comrade Josh. But then also, he represents the emotional heart of the film, this idea of community and empathy and kind of coming together, and not necessarily for glory or for a political rallying cause, but just out of the kindness of his heart to help make his community better, and then being a community leader. He's just a spark of joy as well, like a Katt Williams. Well, I don't think he has necessarily a kind of big emotional scene. He's just cool as waves. He level sets you. He's such an easy kind of person to be around throughout the film. And at the end of the day, I think that's a testament to Benicio and his calming energy, combined with his great comedic timing in many instances. He just fits in like a glove within the film. And as we go along with Bob and his kind of various journeys throughout the way, I constantly think about that sequence, the battle at Bacton Cross, and the excitement and the energy and the calmness and that he's able to bring. It's just a really joyous, fun experience. And Benicio, I don't think he's ever been nominated for a Connor, so had to get him in here. He's a great, legendary actor. Had to get him an award from one of my favorite movies of the year, and one of my favorite parts about the movie. And a true supporting role. He's not in the movie a lot. He supports our main character, but does so in every scene. He steals it, so it had to be the winner for here. Alright, now talking about the Best Supporting Actress category, my picks are Amy Madigan, Weapons, Rebecca Ferguson, A House of Dynamite, Zoe Winters, Materialists, Da'Vine Joy Randolph, Eternity, and Kirsten Dunst for Roofman. And the winner is Amy Madigan, Weapons. The only kind of nominee that I have that overlaps with the Oscars ultimately ended up being my winner, but let's talk about the other nominees. Rebecca Ferguson in A House of Dynamite, a movie I liked but maybe didn't love, but I loved her performance. I loved that first kind of half an hour. She had this sense of authoritarianism, or just like sense of purpose or duty, or she was such a professional throughout her job, but also realizing that she's kind of out of her depth in that this has become bigger than her, and that she's done everything she could and has done a great job and tried to keep everyone calm and under reserved, but that she's still ultimately a human with a family and a kid, and she's worried about their safety as well. And it's a great human performance where it's someone who's great at their job, who's doing exactly what they need to do, but then also going like, man, I'm starting to put together the amplifications and the ramifications of what this could mean, and now I'm scared about me from my family, from a human point of view. So it has that great kind of combination of so many great Bigelow films of seeing someone who is so driven and so good at their job, but then I think Ferguson's able to bring the humanism to the film as well, something that I think the best Bigelow movies do. Zoe Winters and Materialists, this is a borderline kind of small part. She's only in, I think, like 3 or 4 scenes, but I ultimately wanted to include her in supporting actress because it's almost more of a recognition. I try to keep my best small part category to like only 1 or 2 scenes. Zoe Winters, though, in Materials, a movie I liked but also had some struggles with. She was my favorite part. She was someone who was able to come in and you go like, oh wow, this is a jolt to the energy of the film, which sometimes feels a little bit kind of slow and melancholic, which is exactly what the movie needed. Her character is a kind of sense of reality, a gut check that comes in to go like, hey, there's actually some dangers and risks to this job that we hadn't maybe even considered before. And I thought just her ability to express emotion on her face and her really ability to have this amplified performance at the right time for a movie that's so kind of melancholic and slow and relaxed and easygoing. She comes in and gives it a sense of energy and a sense of danger and excitement, and throughout pretty much her performance and what she brings to it, and the anger and the sadness that she's able to bring, she really blew me away. And it's a performance that maybe not a lot of people talk about because they get talked about how maybe they think some of the leads were miscast. But Zoe Winters was not only not miscast, she was the standout of the film for me. Davine Joy Randolph for Eternity, a movie I also really liked, and I think she's the best performance in it. Similar to actually Benicio del Toro in One Battle After Another, she is a calming presence. She is so very funny as well, with great comedic moments. I was nervous about her kind of post-Holdovers career, and glad to see she's picking some great roles here as well. So very funny, very charismatic, very kind of real and honest, and just a real great person to hang around with. I'd want her to be kind of my agent in the afterlife, and did so in a great supporting way to help humanize Miles Teller's character, or expand the plot, or understand the dynamics of everything. She can be the kind of serious emotional and give you the reality, but without being too sentimental and serious, and can kind of have that light touch, which is just her gift as a skilled dramatic but also comedic performer. And that combination is very rare. So I hope she continues to do great parts like this. And then Kirsten Dunst in Roofman was my other nominee. Roofman, a movie that I really liked, but maybe doesn't show up in a lot of these individual categories. And I think Kirsten Dunst, once again, she's one of my favorite actresses, and she does a great job at playing off of Channing Tatum, and being kind of a good single mother type of a protagonist, where you can see that at the beginning she likes this guy, but she's hesitant because she's worried about introducing him to her kids. There's a sense of just reality and honesty and truth to her character. I look at her and I don't go like, oh, that's a movie star. I look at her and go, yeah, that's a single mom living in this, in America, smallish kind of a town, who's just trying to do her best and finds a guy that maybe she likes but doesn't want to get too close to because she's worried about her kids, but then starts to integrate him, and has this kind of great balance of able to show being in love and falling in love at a later age, but still having some of those emotional guards up and realities of the situation and demanding aspects of him, and that kind of internal struggle that she has up until the very kind of final scene of the movie, in which she is just so fantastic in that as well. So she's just always a great actress, but she brought that sense of realism and honesty and sentimentality that works so well with, I think, Stephen Francis' mission. So it was a perfect kind of a marriage there, and I didn't want to not include her. But ultimately, my winner was Amy Madigan in Weapons, which I think is actually maybe my performance of the year. She was someone that I had no prior relationship to. I had seen Field of Dreams, but didn't really recognize her in the film. And I remember telling my friends after I had seen the film, like, who is that? Where did she come from? It was just this perfect marriage of, she looked like this creepy old lady that had something off towards her. She has, especially if you rewatch the movie, so many small little acting choices that she does, where sometimes she'll like bounce on her feet or have these little kind of giggles or laughs offhand, which add to that sense of unhinged nature to it. But then also in her scenes with Alex, she can really kind of hone in and be serious and have that strict tone of voice from a scary teacher that she reminds you from, in middle school or something like that. She has this kind of unnerving sense of energy throughout the entire film, but they can also add into that sense of seriousness and scariness. It's obviously in part to so much of the design of her character, but to create this unique blend, a strange, odd blend that I think is going to be remembered for many years in the horror canon, is a huge testament to Amy Madigan and what she's able to perform here. So really just like, who is this? What is this performance? Where do they get this person? Did they get this witch from out of nowhere? It is this very unique, strange performance that's not only a testament to, like I said, the movie and the design of the character, but all these small little choices that she does throughout the film that keeps you on edge, that keeps you nervous. So such a physical performance as well, and just ultimately scared. To create an iconic, scary movie villain performance in the 21st century that I think will go along the likes of Michael Myers, I really do think is a huge testament to her and her performance style. And the fact that she got nominated for an Oscar for this performance, I think a lot of people agree. And I hope she wins. That's my personal preference. Don't think she will, but I do hope she does win. Okay, now talking about this next category, the best small part category, which I teased a little bit in my last category. This is always a fun one that I like to do every single year. And what's a small part? Well, it's less than a supporting actress. It's one or two scenes, maybe a narration, maybe a voice performance. It is kind of something that I consider not big enough to be a supporting acting performance nominee, but still want to recognize them because there is no such thing as small actors, only small roles. And so let's get into it. My nominees are Connor O'Malley, Friendship; Tramell Tillman, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning; Will Patton, Train Dreams; John Hoogenakker, One Battle After Another; and Bridget Everett for Wake Up Dead Man. And my winner is Connor O'Malley, Friendship. So let's go with the other nominees here. Tramell Tillman, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I like this movie once you get up to the point of the submarine. The submarine onwards is a pretty great Mission Impossible movie. And in part because of his ability to kind of judge the tone, judge the kind of absurd silliness of the nature of the Mission Impossible franchise. That it's a fact it is a 6-year-old guy who's doing all this crazy stuff. And the fact that Ethan Hunt is out of his damn mind. That's one of the best line readings of the year. You must be out of your damn mind. And kind of professionalism that he was able to portray in this kind of one submarine sequence to explain to us exposition in a smart, clear way, while also understanding the kind of craziness that is Ethan Hunt and the joy of these films. He is a perfect kind of addition there. Will Patton in Train Dreams. You may go, wait, who was that again? That's because that's actually the narrator of Train Dreams, who's only in certain moments of the film, but kind of underscores the ending and the beginning of the film. And Will Patton just has this incredibly deep voice that I think gives the grisly nature, the kind of heartbreaking nature of the film an extra sense of life, a sense of your grandfather telling you a story over the fireplace. This is a kind of a warm but gravelly, serious narration that is just perfect for the film. And there's always some issues sometimes with modern filmmakers where they're like, oh, I don't want to use narration, it's cheap, it doesn't work. But when you get a great narration, you get a great narrator, in this case like Will Patton, it just adds so much to the atmosphere and the mood and the tone of the film, which Will Patton does so much to adding to that authenticity of Train Dreams. John Hoogenakker, One Battle After Another. This is one of the Christmas adventurers, the person who is sent to go after Sean Penn's character, the kind of Terminator 2-esque villain of the film. I thought he was just a great performer and a great couple scene performer where he shows up and you go, okay, I remember watching the movie going like, is this a new character? Is this our new protagonist? Why are we following him? What's going on? Who is this guy? And he has this great just face in the sense of very steely looking, doesn't necessarily have a lot of emotions going on. So he has that kind of robotic, all focus killer instincts. That's a part of him. But then is also able to deliver some of the comedic elements of the film, like the chicken licking factory that went down. He says, I love their chicken nuggets. That kind of deadpan way he says it. He's able to deliver and fit into this odd, weird tone of One Battle After Another so perfectly. Bridget Everett in Wake Up Dead Man, we may be talking about her a little bit later in Scene of the Year, but she is the person that, really one scene, technically two, but really just one, where she asks Father Judd to pray for her in this phone call scene, and it has this great moment where she's able to be kind of fun and light and just, talking about, this and that, and then actually, Father Judd, I'm having a hard time, and switches it on a dime and asks him to pray for her, and it has this kind of emotional breakdown moment. And you're watching the movie, because I hadn't seen her before or really know about her work, I was like, okay, yeah, this is just a traditional scene with some sort of small character player where she's just on the phone, maybe giving him a hard time. It's a comedic moment. And then it turns into something emotional. And this one character who you thought was just going to be here, maybe some comedian who I've never heard of that delivers a couple of lines, and then that's it. And then it turns into be with the scene of the movie when it goes from 2 lines of comedy to actual heartbreaking emotion within this 30-second period. And in testament to Bridget Everett and her emotion, what she's able to bring in many ways before we see her face on the phone, and the emotion she's able to bring just through her voice, really remarkable. But my winner is Connor O'Malley for Friendship, just because I think it's one of the funniest performances of the year. He shows up and just takes over Tim Robinson's movie, and you can see sometimes that Tim Robinson's almost like trying not to laugh within the edit of the film because Connor O'Malley just throwing out these crazy elements. I'm thinking mostly of that scene really in the garage. and the fact that we should have never gone out of Afghanistan, and him saying all these crazy things, and him confronting him and matching Tim Robinson's energy, but then going off his own weird path. That kind of the only character in the entire film that feels like an odd Tim Robinson type of a character. You know, the brilliance of Friendship in many ways is that it's Tim Robinson in a normal world. And yet you have Conor O'Malley who comes in and like challenges him for the first time and is the person who's actually closest to his wavelength. But instead of becoming best friends, they become kind of enemies in a way. I think he's just an incredibly funny comedian, and also perfect kind of a little dash of fun within the film. Definitely my favorite part of that film, and a great kind of YouTube scene that I think I'll be watching from time, for time to come. Then my next category, Best Needle Drop. This is for, of course, the best kind of song use within a film. And my nominees are Lose My Mind from F1, Fireworks from Eddington, Dirty Work from One Bell After Another, Beware of Darkness from Weapons, and Ready or Not from One Bell After Another. And the winner is Dirty Work, One Bell After Another. So Lose My Mind, this is an original song for F1 and is the needle drop when Brad Pitt says, we're going to go for plan C, combat. And they all start cheering, combat, combat. And then we get a montage sequence for about 4 minutes, playing almost the entirety of the entire original song. And we see a montage of them kind of winning races or not winning races, but getting close and having success and trying different things, all while that's contrasted with JP trying to kind of get back up to speed while Brad Pitt kind of takes over things. And I think it's the best distillation of F1 and why it works is because it's kind of an edit movie. It's a movie designed to be on edits on TikTok. And in this scene, it is a music video scene. It's an original song that's a fun, exciting, kind of electronic, modern score, kind of a song that is edited to great sequences and montages, and you just realize, like, yeah, that's what I want from this movie. I want to see great racing sequences. I want to see close-ups of them pushing the pedal and zooming out and driving around corners, and that's what's so great about it. And Lose My Mind is a great song to kind of pair with that. So I thought that was a song that wasn't super popular after the film, but one that always stuck with me. And don't listen to the song when you're driving, because you're going to go, 50 kilometers or 50 miles or whatever above the speed limit. You're going to be going so fast. It's just got that propulsive energy. It's a great song. Fireworks in Eddington, a great moment within the film where it's an odd kind of a choice, but of course underscores that sense of fireworks that are happening between the two characters and kind of things boiling up before they actually heat up, and this kind of emasculation, really the sexual emasculation that's going on throughout the film. I think what the movie is actually about is also underscored so much, where it's a power move of song and it's ridiculousness of the song choice ultimately. Even though I do like the song, it is kind of a little bit out of place and adds that kind of absurd reality of the film. Beware of Darkness is the George Harrison song that plays in Weapons. So after that first kind of narration, this is kind of ghost storytelling, true crime storytelling of the film. Everyone left their houses at exactly 2:17. They went down the stairs and into the darkness, and of course Beware of Darkness plays, and you see these kids kind of with the arms out in this odd eeriness running across the dark of the night. And it's just an image that stuck with me because of how kind of odd and strange the decision to be, combined with this song, which I thought at the time was maybe an odd song to go and to add. But on rewatches, you realize this is kind of a perfect combination of this eerie kind of floating nature of why these kids ran out of their house, and a perfect kind of a needle drop that maybe I wouldn't thought of have worked initially, but the more you watch it, the more kind of comfortable it kind of becomes, and works well to adding this kind of sleepiness to the town, which is so integral to the themes of the film. Then Ready or Not for One Bell After Another is my other nominee. This is the song that happens when Bob gets arrested and then is led out by one of the nurses down the hallway into the staircases and then into Benicio del Toro's car. It's just a great kind of a, hey, we're back at it. There's so much energy that is built at the Battle of Bacton Cross, and this is this huge, probably like 25-minute nonstop score sequence. And then he eventually gets tased and gets caught, and then you don't know where the film's going to go. Maybe he's going to go into jail and it's going to enter a down period a bit. But then when it enters the slight down period, it really goes back pretty quickly to Bob back on the run. And when you have that kind of Jackson 5 Ready or Not drop that comes in, it reminds you like, oh, we're back on the chase, we're back into things, we've got to win, there's still hope, there's still kind of a possibility, and it gets that kind of fun sense of energy and propulsion, which I love so much. But my winner was Dirty Work from one ballad after another. The better needle drop in the film, this happens when you really have the kind of, the 40-minute or so prologue with Perfidia at Beverly Hills and the context of the film. You have this great kind of building score of Perfidia leaving, and then you have a cut, and then we see Bob and Willa as a baby, and then we have a cut from Willa as a baby to her, 16 years later in karate class, and then boom, you drop the needle drop, the dirty work from Steely Dan. A perfect kind of a time jump works so well that eases you back into like, okay, we're into this new reality. It's 16 years later, she's in school, she's doing karate class, and she's grown up. And that's the timeline that we're able to kind of understand. Sometimes there's really ingenious ways of doing time jumps. I think the lazy version is to do something like 16 years later. And it kind of obviously communicates that, because when you can do something like this, it's so emotionally impactful. You see this incredible kind of triumphant stringing score, and then you see an image of a baby, and then you cut, and now it's an image of a 16-year-old girl, and then you have Steely Dan play. And it's like, oh, right, we've changed. It's like emphasis, climax to more relaxing Steely Dan kind of drums and bass line that's going on. And it kind of resets your nervous system. It's not this intense revolutionary battle. It's everyday life, and it's school, and it's karate class, and it's getting people to the right time, and it's less seriousness. It's more relaxing before we eventually get to the intense moments, but now it's a period of relaxing. So it's a great use of the song. Now when I hear the song, I think about that moment in the film. And also great use within, okay, now it's 16 years later. Now what are we going to do? Now what's the kind of change in time? Great filmmakers like Paul Thomas Anderson, Boogie Nights, or David Fincher in Zodiac are able to show time jumps in clear, kind of smart moments and ways, and the kind of needle drop in combination with that edit of that time jump period. I think about it as one of the key parts of One Battle After Another, and why it succeeds so much. It's so many of those little decisions like that. So great needle drop. A song that I thought was only going to be recognizable from the Tony Soprano kind of meme and gif of him singing at the steering wheel. So the fact that now I think about it with this song with this movie, it's a testament to how well it was used and how great of a needle drop it ultimately was. Okay, now my next category is going to be Best Design. So this is a combination of production design and costume design and makeup and hairstyling and kind of just overall feel from the visual sense. Not necessarily talking about the cinematography, which we'll talk about later, which is maybe more about the framing and individual camera moves. The design is more so what we see on screen and the great collaborators and contributors to making that world feel so lived in. And my nominees are Resurrection, Eddington, The Testament of Anne Lee, Hamnet, and Caught Stealing. And my winner is The Testament of Anne Lee. So, best design here, Resurrection is my first one. This is a movie that not a lot of people have seen, but is a design candidate absolutely because of how the movie has these little kind of short stories or vignettes or segments without the film that shows us so many great design options, and all of them feel real and lived in, whether it be the kind of incredible long take sequence by the doc, or the kind of monk sequence, or the kind of sci-fi bits at the beginning and end of the film. There's so many kind of great, ingenious, creative elements and use of design. So it's an appreciation here for the variety of design, the fact that we're going through so many different types of periods without the film, so many different types of genres, so many different types of stories that all feel real and lived in and have a sense of life, while also being just the variety of sets I wanted to appreciate as well. Not only the authenticity, but also that variety. Eddington is another one that I think maybe not a lot of people will immediately recognize, because all of my other nominees are kind of fantasy or period pieces. Eddington is technically a period piece, but one of modern day age, and I want to recognize that as well. Whether it be the kind of Joe Cross home, you immediately understand the dynamic and the kind of cucking that is going on at the time when you have the father-in-law with this shrine that's going on, and all the kind of posters and cereal boxes that's going on, or even just the bar. Ted Garcia's bar is so kind of detailed and lived in, and there's so many great kind of small moments of like, oh yeah, I remember this poster up, stay 6 feet away, and things that kind of take you back to that time of 2020 that was somewhat universal, at least within North America. And it's a great kind of capture of modern day life and of how it is and how it was, and adding in specific kind of period moments to what was going on in 2020, but then also a sense of small town feeling. There's always a sense of geography as well to the town, but individual locations within the town, whether it be the police station or Joe Cross's home, feel very lived in, feel very detailed, feels like this is someone's home, not something that was created. Even just down to like the color of the sheets or the pillows and things like that, I thought was just, I was always amazed, like this feels like a real place, this feels like a real town. And that's a testament to the design elements of the film. Then I went with Hamnet. I thought this was a film that I really liked, but also a film that I think was able to have a great combination of color, but also dinginess. You know, many period films are just like kind of gray or brown or white and black and kind of boring. This was able to bring a sense of color to the period without it feel like this is a new costume. You know, sometimes with period films, it's difficult to have someone with like a red dress. It doesn't feel like a brand new Vogue red dress that they took off the shelf. So then instead what a lot of people do is they take a white dress and make it really muddy and dirty and they go, this is what they wore. But then you realize that in medieval times, like colors did exist, like pigments did exist as well. It wasn't just for the kings and queens. So it was kind of this good combination of you have someone like a Jessie Buckley who's able to wear a red dress, but it still is a darker red. It still feels lived in. It still feels realized. That the costume design was very well done. And then I think about some of the places, whether it be the Globe Theatre, which they recreated, but more so just the forest and the home within the forest. Didn't feel like a place that I can visit today. Felt like they built it. Felt like it was recreated. There was a sense of transportation that I think is underrated within the film. And I do think that that sense of lived-inness was so well felt within Hamnet, and that's a testament, I think, to all the kind of production design, costume design, and makeup that was able to be done within the film. Caught Stealing is my other nominee. This is a movie I liked quite a bit that maybe not as many other people did, but I thought kind of captured that kind of 90s punk grunge aesthetic very well, whether it be the stylings of Matt Smith or even just the kind of dunginess of the bar or his apartment. Everything felt like this kind of time period within New York and very well realized and had a budget to kind of realize that. So it was a recreation of not only the outside street elements, but also I think of the interiors and even some of the characters' costume design choices. Zoe Kravitz, the kind of baseball type shirts that Austin Butler wears, or kind of that fun outfit of Matt Smith. It was very evocative of that period, I felt. Even as someone who's maybe not lived there, it felt like that kind of idealized maybe version of the 90s that is no longer in New York. But my winner is The Testament of Anne Lee. I love the movie, and whenever I looked at the movie, I thought like, this feels like a painting. This feels like a painting that I could kind of, go into. In part because they used painted kind of matte paintings for some of the landscapes, which gives it a sense of, I think, a little bit of a dreaminess or a little bit of a storybook tale, which I think is effective to telling the story. But I think of whether it be some of the shaker furniture and the scenes of them making it, or early on in the film where we see the Anne and her brother doing the kind of, I guess it would have been like making some sort of cotton, of some sorts of like in a cotton mill, and you have them wearing their masks. I thought it was a great kind of ingenious visual element, but also a sense of realism to the film. And then even those early scenes within England, building a lot of those villages, it didn't feel, similarly to Hamnet, it didn't feel like, oh, we just created this for this story. This felt like this was some place that existed and what we're just kind of leaping into. I was really impressed by, especially this budget scale, how impressive some of the sets and areas were, in combination with some of the kind of very period accurate costumes and garb that was worn by both the men and the women. I thought it was just, like I said, felt like entering into a painting, and I couldn't believe some of the images I was seeing from a design point of view. Then my best score category, my nominees are F1, Hans Zimmer, Train Dreams, Bryce Dessner, Hamnet, Max Richter, Jay Kelly, Nicholas Britell, and Roofman, Christopher Bear. And my winner is Train Dreams, Bryce Dessner. So this was a really tough category. I think this is the best year for scores in maybe since I've been covering the Connors. There were so many options, whether it be Resurrection, M83, or I almost went with, a One Battle After Another, Johnny Greenwood. I love the Ludwig Göransson score for Sinners. There are just so many scores that I really wanted to include but didn't. But it felt like these were the five that ultimately I kept going back to, which not only were great to listen to outside of the film, but then also within the context of the film and what they're able to add to it. So let's talk about my nominees first. F1 for Hans Zimmer. I think that there's a great theme here that Hans is able to bring. He's a past winner, so I am a particular to his scores. But I think what he's able to do in terms of the da-na, 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 adds that sense of kind of fun, that propulsion, and a modern electronic score that I think felt right for this movie. It could have had a traditional kind of sweeping strings-based score, but instead it was a little bit more modern, a little bit more energetic, and that I think helped add to that sense of racing, that sense of excitement and movement. And whenever you talk about a score for a film, you always talk about how does this movie sound? How are you able to capture the way a movie sounds? And when you think about this movie, I think about speed and excitement and driving, and I think that electronic kind of propulsive score that Hans is able to bring through that theme, he was able to capture it. He was able to capture the sound of the film so well. So I wanted to include him there. Hamnet for Max Richter. I'm a huge fan of Max Richter, and I think for a lot of people, including even myself, the first time I saw the film, I was actually disappointed when they used On the Nature of Daylight for that climactic scene, because I knew everyone was going to be talking about that use of pre-existing music that has been used in Shutter Island and Arrival and some other films. And I was so disappointed because the other parts of the score are so great. There are so many other great original pieces of music that he's done for this film that I think is some of his best work that people maybe aren't totally recognizing because they just go, oh, people think it's that On the Nature of Daylight score that's being used for the first time for the film, right? And there's so much great stuff not including On the Nature of Daylight, which is a great song in and of itself, but there is some additional stuff that he's able to do, particularly in the kind of sense of that eeriness and that dreaminess and that woo-woo elements of the beginning of Hamnet, that he's able to kind of underscore and bring a sense of seriousness and a sense of kind of magic, really, to the film, that when you are emotionally connected with the film, it's in part because of the enhancing he's able to do with some of his beautiful melodies and score. Jay Kelly, Nicholas Britell. A different kind of a Nicholas Britell score in the sense of there's heavy elements of themes, where you have a theme for Jay Kelly, but then you also have a theme for Adam Sandler's character, and they're both working really well. I think Jay's theme in particular is how do we talk and do a score which is about essentially remembering or recollection or kind of reconsidering. How do we do that? And Nicholas Britell, interestingly, actually used a lot of felt piano, where instead of having that kind of deep hollowness of a traditional piano key, it kind of hits a piece of felt before hitting the string. So it has a sense of delay or unsureness, which is all about this idea of Jay Kelly and recontextualizing and reconsidering his life. There's a sense of beat and pause before you hit that string with that felt piano that I think is just beautifully reflected within Jay's experience. And then when you get to the end of the film and you have this kind of more traditional movie score, it feels momentous and occasional because there's so much sense of doubting and unsureness and darkness, so that when you get a traditional score, it feels in many ways out of place and like, oh, right, this is kind of what people see him as, rather than the way he's been seeing himself and connecting with himself. So some unique individual scores, big orchestral stuff too, but also some slower felt piano stuff that I loved that Nicholas Britell did. Then Christopher Bear here for his score for Roofman, also really well liked this one because it had that sense of fun and chaotic good kind of an energy of a sorts, where you know what Channing Tatum is doing is kind of creepy and bad, and the movie could lean into that and how kind of sinister this stuff is by having a different score. By having a dark, sinister score would have, I think, completely recontextualized the film. Instead, it was a little bit more jazzy, a little bit more fun, a little bit more whimsical, which added to the sense of like, what a crazy story this is, right guys? What an odd person this guy is. And he has a real heart of gold, but he's doing something bad, and what's that kind of dilemma? And so much of those themes and that feeling of, I don't know, I like this guy, but this kind of doing this weird thing. So much of that feeling and that ability to have that two things exist at once, I think has to do with the fact of Christopher Bear's whimsical score and his decision, or maybe San Francisco told him to do that, but that decision to have it more of an optimistic, I guess, kind of a score instead of a dark, brooding score, which I think only helps add to that sense of joy and fun and playfulness that the film, when it is at its best, I think has. But then my winner was Train Dreams from Bryce Dessner, a composer that I've really liked his stuff in recent years, whether it be something like Come On, Come On, I remember almost winning, and that's a score I listen to consistently. And now it is Train Dreams. whether it be some of the kind of great individual fast piano elements to the kind of great sweeping strings elements of the film. When I think about the film, I think about the images and I think about the score and how that makes me feel. And it does so much heavy lifting within the film, and I like the movie so much. So if I like the movie so much, and when I think about the movie, I close my eyes and I see the images and the score, well, those are maybe the two best parts of the film. So in the same way we mentioned how Will Patton was so great at adding the sense of tone and atmosphere, I think Train Dreams is also, the score is able to add so much tone and atmosphere to the reality of the situation, to the kind of fast-moving storybook elements of the film. The fact that we're going to tell an entire life of someone in kind of a short period of time, and the kind of broad strokes that we have sometimes with his life, we have with grand sweeping string pieces, let's say, or piano pieces within the film. It's just a great score to listen to, and I think works well within the film. So I just love the movie so much, and when I thought about the movie, I think about the images and the score. So it had to win at least one of these. I had to give it here for the win for Best Score. Bryce Dessner, shout out. Now we're going to do a category that I like to call Best Moment in a Film. So you can see this as Best Scene or Best Individual Moment within a film. It is kind of essentially the best scene of the year. A category that I love, and is one of the ones where I always kind of add it to a YouTube playlist so I can remind myself, oh yeah, this was a great movie scene from this year. So my nominees are the dance scene, the I Lied to You scene from Sinners, the hilly car chase from One Battle After Another, the haircut scene in Weapons, the ending of Jay Kelly, and the phone call / Will You Pray For Me scene from Wake Up Dead Man. And my winner is the hilly car chase from One Battle After Another. So the other nominees here, the dance scene from Sinners. Sinners is a movie I liked but maybe didn't love, but I thought this was a genuinely transcendent scene, a scene that will be remembered for many years to come. I think the fact that you have a traditional kind of a genre type of a movie and you interject a scene like this, which on paper I think would make no sense and yet works so well within the film. It is a scene that I look at if I'm a studio executive and I'm highlighting it and going like, what is this? What does this do to go advance the plot forward? Why does this, make any sense? This supernatural scene, will it work within the movie? And it does, because it's what the movie ultimately is. It has to be in there. It is this element of how music can connect people throughout cultures, and in this moment of time, this moment of freedom at the juke joint, it seems as if in this supernatural element, your ancestors, the future, the past, the present, all connected through music, are dancing or celebrating or enjoying themselves in this brief moment of ecstasy before the vampires, of course, come and threaten that brief moment of joy. The whole point of the first half of the movie is we're building the juke joint to build a place of our own. And then they get it, and then they revel in it. And it's that great revelation, that ecstasy, that climax in many ways of the film through this sequence that I think is genuinely transcendent. Had to include it here because I do think it's going to be a scene that's going to be remembered in clips of movies. When people think about the film, it's going to be that dance sequence. And I remember even before seeing the film, people were like, oh, let's talk about that scene. Like, let's talk about the scene from Sinners. Because it was so obvious what the scene was. There wasn't any other scene. It was that scene. That's kind of how powerful the film and that scene was. The haircut scene in Weapons. Weapons, I could have gone with the ending as well, which I absolutely love, which is tough for a horror movie to end it so satisfyingly, which that film did. But I went with the haircut scene because that was the one scene in the film, which we don't know, is you cut to Julia Garner sleeping, watching a house in her car, then she's sleeping, then we cut to a house that we think is the kind of scary house. We see the door open, a black kind of a door, and you see a figure slowly walk through, and you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no. You see this scary figure walk towards the car as we're panning, and then we stop at Julia Garner's character and her side of her door, and then we don't know where the figure is, and you see them come around, and then with just sound design, you hear the door open. And then I just remember being in this theater like with bated breath, what's going to happen? What's next? Is she going to die? You never really knew. He just had you in the palm of his hands the entire time, and then you can see the scissors come out, and then she leaves, and then goes back into the house, and it's like she doesn't really realize her hair got cut. There's never a scene of Julia Garner touching her hair and going like, oh, my hair has been cut. She has no idea. And it's just a small, scary, tense moment, perfectly calibrated by Zach Kreger. That is the scariest moment of the year, and just a great scene. And I remember being in theaters, just gripping my armrests, being so nervous. Then the ending of J. Kelly. Don't want to spoil J. Kelly because I've mentioned it a few times and it's one of my favorite movies of the year. So if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. Go check it out. But the ending, the particular line that he has, that he kind of says to camera, is just a perfect, devastating kind of a line and a perfect encapsulation of the emphasis of the whole film and what Clooney was able to bring from an emotional point of view. And then that kind of beautiful Baumbach writerly sensibility is just a perfect end cap to why I think I love that film so much and really moved me by the end of it. I mentioned already the film called Will You Pray For Me scene, talking about Bridget Everett, but it is just this great moment in a film where you're excited, you're following the mystery, you want to go bang, 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 you're getting caught up in everything. And as the characters, Father Judd and Benoit Blanc, become so enwrapped within the mystery, so do we. We want to see who the killer is, right? And then it reminds us, it tells Father Judd to stop, but also reminds us as an audience member to stop and realize, like, we have this kind of craven ability to want to know more and to find an answer. And sometimes you have to kind of stop and reflect and remember what's important to you in life. In this case, it was Father Judd. In this case, it was being a priest. And a great kind of a scene of the year scene within the film. And something that was unique to this Knives Out that wasn't in the other ones. It was really a standout for me. But my winner ultimately was the hilly car chase in one battle after another. Could have chose multiple moments within the film, but I thought about this because I remember seeing it for the first time and going like, oh, this is new. You know, sometimes it's rare to see a movie. In many ways, the reason why you go to the movies is to see something new. But it becomes increasingly less and less the case the more movies you see, because you've seen someone do that in another type of way before. So when I saw the hilly car chase scene, I was like, oh wow, this is like a combination of Vanishing Point and Duel and Terminator 2, but completely its own, and just a complete director in control of his medium. When you have consistent shots between someone's face and then the rearview mirror, and then you have a shot of a rearview mirror and you see someone's car, and then in the distance you see Bob's car, and it's all communicated without dialogue, with just score and visuals. You have a sense of rooting, you have a sense of danger because you're unsure of where the car is going to come next. And it's just I think an immediately iconic, brilliant, exciting action scene, and it's genuinely something I haven't seen before. And then the way I kind of think about the scene is when Willa kind of slams the door and you have that great kind of a door shot of her, has a sense of propulsion, all the way up until the emotional climax of the movie, where, you know, it's the confrontation between Willa and Bob at the side of the road, and he says, you know, I'm your dad. And if you can count that entire one scene, you have like just a brilliantly exciting, dynamic action car chase scene. People said in the 70s that car chase scenes were done and you can't do exciting ones, and still we're in 2025 and we get exciting car chases that I haven't seen before. So it's just an incredible car chase that I've never seen before. And then you have the emotional climax of the film at the very end here in this key integral part of the film. So it's like everything why I love one battle after another. It's unique, it's exciting, it's got its own kind of funny sense of energy, it's got some of the most dynamic action filmmaking of all time, and then also you have this really kind of heartfelt, sneaky, emotional element that comes up to you in that same scene as well, with some of the best performances of the year. It's this one extended sequence, this one great scene, this heli car chase that I mentioned I think is going to be an iconic scene and something that I'm going to be watching on YouTube for time to come. Now, this category is the Best Original Song category, a category that I haven't done in a few years, but actually did back in my first ever Connors video. So for 10 years, wanted to bring it back. I also thought that this was a good year to bring it back because we had some great original songs. So the Oscars do it every year. Some years is better than others. This year, though, it was a pretty good one. My nominees are My Baby from Japanese Breakfast from the film Materialists, Train Dreams by Nick Cave from Train Dreams, Last Time by Alice Smith and Miles Caton from Sinners, and my winner is Train Dreams by Nick Cave from Train Dreams. This one can be a shorter category, but love Japanese Breakfast and her music, so when I heard My Baby at the end credits of Materialists, I thought it was a great kind of cap, because the lyrics quite easily sum up the film. You know, my baby got nothing at all. He got nothing to give, but he gives it to me. And I think that's the kind of emphasis and theme of the film. It's like, maybe you don't have enough from a financial point of view, but if you have that love and you're willing to give it and sacrifice it and give it over to somebody, entirely, that's the love ultimately, more so than it is the financial realizations, even though that is an element of the film. And then Last Time, another end credit song here from Sinners, which I think is actually the better song than I Lied to You. Listen to this one quite a bit, and I think underscores the kind of some of the triumphant element at the end of the film before we get that kind of mini mid-credits, post-credits sequence. And then ultimately Train Dreams from Nick Cave, also a end credit song. So none of these songs are necessarily woven within the film very well, but that's fine by me because they're all really great songs. And in the same way Will Patton is bringing a sense of authenticity, and the same way Bryce Dessner is bringing a sense of authenticity to the film, Nick Cave is the perfect choice, I think, as well, for this kind of storybook-esque person recounting their life, ordinary as it was, but beauty within the small moments. I think Nick Cave is able to capture all that within the recollection style of his song. And I remember kind of the style of his song with a pretty simple melody and orchestral production, but still able to, with his gravelly kind of a voice, add to that sense of realness of a grandpa telling you a story by the fire. And it's another kind of smart decision of music the film had, and a song that I consistently listen to. But now let's talk about another smaller category here. Best first time feature. Always like to highlight, first time filmmakers that maybe have made documentaries in the past or short films. In this case, just music videos and short films. This is their first, though. It has to be their first. It can't be their first major one. It is their first actual feature-length film. These are the nominees. Drew Hancock, Companion. Eva Victor, Sorry Baby. Lawrence Lamont, One of Them Days. And my winner is Drew Hancock, Companion. This is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I haven't talked about it in some of these other categories just yet, but it is a movie that I enjoyed quite a bit. Saw it about a year ago now, early on in 2025, and I was just amazed by it. The sense of control and confidence and uniqueness of this story idea. It felt like just, this is not necessarily going to win any Oscars, but it is a really well done genre film that is set up, pay off perfectly. It's the kind of movie that they don't necessarily make anymore, and sometimes I push back on when people say that, they don't make them like they used to, because they make so many great movies. But there is a sense in this area where they don't necessarily make these types of movies all the time anymore, or this good all the time anymore. When you think about, you see like a great 90s thriller, for example, you go, they made so many of these. They were just pumping these out. And now they don't pump out as much of these, but when they do come along and you see a filmmaker who's young, who's able to have the sense of, I would say, genre precision, where the story beats are so consistent, it is so entertaining, you're never kind of worried at one moment where things are going to go. It's a great sense of ideas, it's a great sense of just like a filmmaker as a technical craftsman at work who's not necessarily interested in like deep ideas or strong artistic emotion. It's like, how do we tell a super entertaining story in the most efficient, exciting way possible? And that's what Drew Hancock did here with Companion. Makes me really excited to see what he's going to do next. But some of my other nominees, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there why Drew Hancock was ultimately the winner, but we'll talk about the other nominees too. Eva Victor for Sorry Baby. I think a really dazzling debut, not only starring in the film, but directing it, writing it, producing it. It is her vision, and you can see, I think she brings a great sense of sensitivity, of place to the film. There is this kind of a great tone management of like warmness, but also depression, but also melancholy, but also sadness, but also hope. It has kind of got this great sense of a sleepy coastal town and her kind of sleepy environment and living in this place where this traumatic incident happened to her and trying to overcome that and not letting that define her, but it being still so impactful for her life and her still trying to process that, has this great kind of indie charm that I think Eva Victor is able to capture so well. So excited to see what she does next. And then Lawrence Lamont for One of Them Days. Similarly with Drew Hancock and Companion, except I liked Companion a little bit more. One of Them Days is a movie that is well expertly made and is a film that reminds you of some of those great kind of 90s comedies like a Friday, for example. And I think is right in there with that canon. So it's fascinating to see that it's not from an old hand, like a, F. Gary Gray or something like that. It is a newer filmmaker who's done a lot of music videos, who's able to come in and goes, I've seen some of these movies, I know these movies like the back of my hand, to now actually making one of his own and having a great sense of kind of comedy and comedic timing within the film, a sense of energy, a sense of playfulness, or a road trip quality to the film, a sense of place. This is such an LA kind of a film as well, has that great sense of place. And then to get a great performance out of a non-first time performer in SZA, and the collaboration that she has with Keke Palmer, and I think it's just a great light on its feet type of a film that people overlook its sense of directing, but it is sneakily well directed because they don't make them like they used to, because they don't have as many craftsmen as maybe they used to, because we're not developing that talent. So when you have a great filmmaker like a Drew Hancock, like Lawrence Lamont, who's able to make kind of old school Hollywood, really well entertaining, fun movies, you should give them all the budget for their next movie to continually make these types of movies and continually to kind of pump them out. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they're both really excellent scripts as well, but to keep everything kind of on track and to actually execute on a great script is a testament to directing as well. So all three filmmakers are all kind of the winners. I think I like Companion the best of their films, but all excited to see what they do next. Now let's talk about my picks for best cinematography. I have F1, Claudio Miranda, Materialist, Shabir Kirshner, Hamnet, Lucas Zal, The Testament of Anne Lee, William Rexer, and Eddington, Darius Kanji. And the winner goes to Shabir Kirshner, Materialists. So, let's talk about some of the other nominees here. F1, Claudio Miranda. So many of these kind of big budgeted films don't always look that good. And it makes no sense to me. It almost looks like they spent $50 million on the film and $200 million on the VFX, because there's so much VFX. Whereas this movie almost feels like it spent $200 million on the film and $50 million on the VFX. There's a sense of professionalism, of class, of clarity within the film. I think this is the best digital cinematography that I've ever seen. And it has to do with the fact of Claudio Miranda. The 4K looks absolutely incredible. There's a sense of crispness, of cleanness. People comment and say it looks like, kind of like a Apple commercial, which I think is maybe true, but also fine. It's as focusing on what digital cinematography is able to do well. When you have film, it almost has this kind of graininess and dreaminess because it's not always super clear and sharp and distinct. But with digital, you can have something that's super realistic and super clear and kind of like an Apple commercial, clean lines and smooth and in focus and kind of satisfying in its own beautiful way of the most glossy, sharp looking thing possible. And that's what this movie is. I'm sure it looks great on Apple TV. I have the 4K. It looks great there as well. It looked great in the theater as well. And then even to think about some of the camera movements and innovations that he's able to do, making these incredibly small cameras to fit on the F1 cars to go as fast as they are, the kind of whip pans that they have, the cuts of these great insert shots as well, the sunlight backing a great movie star like a Brad Pitt. It is a kind of an old school classical way of filming things, and Claudio's done some great stuff over his career, and this is just a kind of very glossy, flashy, smooth, digital kind of a film, but a way that makes digital look good and it emphasizes the strengths of digital more than anything. Then I had Hamnet, Lucas Zal, who's consistently putting up some great stuff, but I thought to add it to that sense, I mentioned the design element, that sense of authenticity, that sense of lived-inness, had to do with the design elements, absolutely, but also Lucas Zal and his ability to capture some of that light and bring a sense of realism and naturalism to the film. The Testament of Anne Lee, once again, William Rexer, I mentioned, that won the design award. It felt like stepping into a painting, in part also because of the way Rexer kind of lights certain elements too as well. And then even the camera movements to move along with some of the dance sequences is a real testament to his skill there. Eddington, Darius Kanji, one of the films that I think the most about from its image making, and it's hard to tell how much of it is Kanji and how much of it is Astor and his great filmmaking style, but there are certain moments within the film I think of when Joe Cross is outside making dinner for his wife. You see the kind of left side of the screen being cool and blue and the outside, and then you see the right side of the screen, which is inside the home, which is more of a darker red, and you see Joe Cross on the right side of the screen. Literally quite for the states, left being left wing, right being right wing, the red versus the blue of the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's like you could read into it if you want, or it's just a traditional kind of establishing shot of a scene. It's like that's one of many. I think of the scene near the end where you have a guy holding a gun and a phone at the same time. You have this kind of POV shot. What that says about us. It's a great kind of, when I think about the cinematography, it's like, yes, it looks great. Yes, there's great lighting, all that stuff, great camera movement. It's the image making. It's the fact of you have an image of a slogans idea board in a police station with a prisoner right there, and we're totally disregarding him, or this kind of allegorical left versus right wing in the colors, or the kind of glass in between the two men at the beginning of the film or the bar. I just think about the film and I think about how potent some of these images are in the way that great films are able to do. How do you tell a film about 2020? How do you tell a film without offending anyone? Well, it's impossible. So you have to offend them, and you do so by saying, less so from words. People have spoken so much about that time period in so many arguments, and more so about like images. Because that image sticks with me and is able to say more to me than any kind of 10,000 word essay or monologue can. You just see an image of, a guy holding a phone with a gun, and it's like, wow, that's a powerful moment and explanation of the film. And then even when you think about when Joe Cross announces he's running for mayor, and he has this phone set up, and so I didn't want to necessarily give it the cinematography award. It may win the award for best like image making and iconic image making, but yeah, I think of some of these moments, you think of some of the shots of Eddington more than I think about some of the dialogue. But my winner was Shabir Kirshner for Materialists, which I thought had this beautiful combination of the kind of glossy sheen of an F1, but also a beautiful set design, this time in the period sense, from the Materialist world. This is also a great, so many instances, especially near the end of the film, where you have that bokeh of the strings of lights. You have so many great apartments that are lit beautifully. And it has much my personal sense of look, which has kind of slightly washed out, slightly almost pastel, light, bright still colors, but not like in your face neon. Beautiful pinks, beautiful grays and blacks, great apartments, great costumes, great suits and dresses. There's a sense of tactileness to New York, but there's a sense of removing how beautiful New York looks without that smell. There's not a griminess or dinginess. It is an elevated sense of New York. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's beautiful. I look at it and go, that's a beautiful film. I want to touch it like a great piece of fabric. It works so well within getting us to understand this high-class society of the world. And you do so, yes, by set design, but you also do it by how you light things, how you light actors, why they look so beautiful within the film. It's because of what Shabir is able to do here. So I just think about the film, and I think about images, and I think just how I want to live in it and how beautiful and textured and warm it feels. And it's just my personal style of how every film I wish should look. Materialist, I thought, just absolutely stunned me. Then my award for Best Monologue, I have Sorry Baby, the ending, Blue Moon, the whole movie, and Eddington, the Ted Garcia revelation by Joe Cross at the restaurant. And my winner is the ending of Sorry Baby. Talked about Sorry Baby already, and how I thought Ava Victor did such a confident, great job for her directorial debut, but also the ending, which I won't spoil, but she's talking to a baby. And her kind of great monologue speech really blew me away. That's why it's ultimately my winner. Blue Moon wanted to go with the whole movie because I couldn't pick one, but I guess at the beginning there when he's talking about Casablanca at that bar scene, it's a testament to how Ethan Hawke is so great at obviously doing an incredible amount of dialogue, but also commanding the scene and understanding how someone can be so charming and funny and witty, but also the cause of their own demise and pessimistic and heartbroken and forgotten. And he's able to capture all that through these extensive kind of long monologues. So how do you pick one from Blue Moon? I don't know. So pick the whole entire movie. The entire movie is pretty much a monologue by him, kind of a one-man show of sorts, and he keeps you entertained throughout the entire time. A huge testament to his performance. And then Eddington, Joaquin Phoenix, who, spoiler, is not a nominee for Best Actor, so I want to talk about how great his performance is in the film here, in particular in this scene. When you see him just kind of start to spiral out of control. He's someone who has maybe self-esteem issues or unsureness issues within himself, and you see that early on in the film, but he still has a sense of command and control, and he's the sheriff. So that when you get to the scene, and he's flustered, and the town is unraveling before him, and he doesn't know how to contain it, and he says, you know what? Don't let me think. Don't let me think, just start recording with me, and let me go off. And you see him kind of go on this kind of mad rant and spiral, and reveal, a little bit of a spoiler there, that Ted Garcia used to be with his wife, and that there's kind of some allegations there. And I also think it's the moment in the movie where it starts to reveal itself of what the movie's actually about. Yes, it's a political drama, but it's also about kind of sexual shame and embarrassment. And so much of that scene, I think, highlights, oh, right, this is why the tension's there. It's not necessarily to do with politics. That's an outside factor. It's the fact that this guy feels like less worthwhile than some other characters in the film. And he's expressing that, and he's coming back with this huge allegation and not considering anyone else but himself, and allowing him to be embarrassed and talk about his shame, which in many ways is brave for him to do it, but also you can see him ruining his life in real time as well. It's this great kind of a crazy ranting type of performance that Astor in many ways just holds on Joaquin. He's able to give this great big monologue, and it is such a perfect character, I think, for this role, and this monologue is a great emphasis of his great acting talent. Now we have the Mark Woollen Award for Best Trailer. My favorite trailer had to be released this year, not necessarily for a movie released this year. Remember last year we did the 28 Years Later trailer, because that came out at the end of 2024 for a 2025 movie. The trailer had to be released in 2025. These are the nominees. Always a fun one that I like to do. So check out these trailers if you haven't already. These are some of the best ones from this year. In particular, if you've seen the film as well, trailers I like to see have here make you want to see the movie, but also after having seen the film, are they a good representation of the movie itself? So here we go. I have Honey Don't official trailer, Hamnet official teaser trailer, Weapons official trailer, The Perfect Neighbor official trailer, and Highest to Lowest official teaser. And the winner is The Perfect Neighbor. So Honey Don't was a movie that ultimately I haven't seen yet, so maybe it wasn't that great of a trailer because it didn't force me to ultimately see the movie. But I remember having no interest in the movie whatsoever, and then seeing the trailer in a movie theater and going like, wow, this is really well cut and has this madcap sense of Coen Brothers energy, and maybe I should check this out. And then I got poor reviews and I didn't end up actually checking it out. Maybe I will one day, but I watched the trailer again in anticipation of finalizing this list, and I was like, yeah, it's great. It's entertaining and it's funny and it's got great laugh lines and it's got a sense of energy and it's 2 minutes and tells a story and keeps you entertained, and it's an excellent trailer at selling the movie. Although I guess I can't give it the win or anything like that just because I didn't end up seeing the movie, so maybe it wasn't that great of a trailer, but I think as its own piece of artwork, it is a beautifully cut one. Hamnet, the official teaser trailer, I think does a great job at convincing you to see the movie. So many times when people talk about the movie, they talk about, man, it's tough, it's heartbreaking, it will emotionally wreck you. And that's tough to sell to people. A lot of people don't want to go on that emotional journey. So what I think the trailer does so much well is that it shows you it's maybe going to emotionally wreck you, but it's actually more of a life-affirming movie. It's more of a joyous movie than I think people give it credit for. And it's not a difficult watch, in my opinion. I've seen it twice now and liked both of my experiences. The second time even more so than the first. And you have that beautiful Max Richter score, which I love so much and already mentioned, underscoring it in that sense of climax and occasion and life and celebration and love and acting and family and heartbreak. And it's got this all kind of a encapsulation of the vibe of Hamnet within a trailer, and that's what the trailer has to do best. Definitely was happy, and I think as a piece of artwork itself, it is well cut together. Weapons official trailer, which is essentially just the opening of the film over a trailer, but it works really well at setting up the scene of, okay, here's the story of the film. Here's the story I'm going to tell you. All these kids ran out of their class, from one class only at 2:17 a.m. No one knows where they are. Bang, the story starts here. And then the last 30 seconds of the trailer is like crazy sequences of things cut together of like, this is going to be a crazy wild ride. I remember seeing Weapons, the trailer, the first time before seeing the film and going like, okay, I'm sold. You have a great premise, which you set up in the first minute of the trailer, and then the last 30 seconds you showed me a bunch of crazy images with a bunch of cool actors that I'm excited to see. And in many ways what I thought about the trailer was so great is you set up the premise of the film. All these kids from one class went up out of their own will, 2:17 a.m. and left the house, right? And then immediately you cut that with Josh Brolin's character going like, why her? Why only her class? I don't understand this at all. And it immediately answers your questions of the premise, which is, oh, why this movie is going to be interesting, why I'm going to watch this movie, because Josh Brolin quite literally communicates my interest. Why did they leave? Why did they go up in the middle of the night? Why only her class? Why only one kid? It's like, why? Which keeps you entertained. And what a trailer does, which is, okay, this is the premise of the movie, then you're going to go to the movie to see the answers, you're going to see what happens, you're going to see where the story takes you. So it's a great trailer in that sense. Highest to lowest official teaser. I remember seeing this teaser and being really blown away because the movie was going to come out in like, at that point, it had been only like probably 3 weeks or a month later. We hadn't heard anything about it. I don't really think I've even seen any stills from the movie. And then I just saw Denzel absolutely cooking, absolutely telling us about like what's the price you're willing to pay. Are you willing to have the highs and the lows, and are you willing to accept the consequences of your actions in a kind of really tightly edited kind of highlight reel, sizzle reel of Spike Lee shooting New York in the only way that he knows how to, with bringing sense of life and community and action and people in cars and running and things like that. And it was like, wow, this seems like a really exciting, engaging New York movie. And Denzel talking about, a great kind of monologue and a great kind of a orator like only he is able to do, and got me super excited to watch the film without telling me anything about what the plot was or what it was about. It was just about consequences and actions, and your time is coming, and here's Spike Lee and Denzel and in New York, and it's gritty and it's going to be fast and action packed, and it's like that's all you needed to do. Sometimes teasers are better than trailers because teasers are more so about the mood and feel of the movie, and trailers are like, this is what the movie's about. Do you want to go see it? But if you're already sold, I was always going to watch the latest Spike Lee film, so I didn't need to see the trailer. I didn't need to know what it was about. I just needed to know the vibe, and that's what exactly this teaser gave me. But my winner was The Perfect Neighbor official trailer, which is a movie I saw before seeing the trailer. And then I ended up seeing the trailer, just scrolling through some of the top rated trailers, scrolling through Mark Woollen and that company's trailers, which is the person that this category is named after. And The Perfect Neighbor popped up, and I was absolutely blown away. There's a sense of propulsion. The movie itself, The Perfect Neighbor, is a genius sense of editing, in the sense that you're able to see all these body cam footage, films essentially, and the captures, and put it together into an entertaining film. And the trailer's also doing a similar thing. It's like telling you all the key moments of the film, where this dilemma is going to happen, where the clash is going to happen. You know what's going to happen in terms of that clash, and then what's the fallout of it. It tells you all that within this kind of 2-minute trailer, ending off with, in many ways, I'm the perfect neighbor. And you see the kind of title card of The Perfect Neighbor. While also throughout the movie, I haven't mentioned, has this kind of like a beep, beep. I think of a starting of a recording sound almost of the body cam. So it adds that sense of trueness, of that true crime element to it, but a unique kind of a spin on that. And it's just a really propulsive, entertaining, like I was just totally locked in, engaged on this trailer, hypnotized by it in many ways. So if you haven't seen that and you've seen the film, definitely check out the Perfect Neighbor trailer. Even if you haven't seen the film, I think it's a great selling of like, okay, I understand where we are. A crazy neighbor who keeps calling on these kids. The neighborhood doesn't like it. The cops are constantly coming back. And then what happens when that tension point boils over? And what's this movie actually going to be about, right? And then and talk about the modern day crime system and standing around laws in Florida and modern day footage and racism and everything that film is ultimately about and great at doing is captured here in this trailer. So a great group of trailers here that I'm all very happy with. And ultimately, though, The Perfect Neighbor was my winner. Now, Best Editing. My nominees are F1, Weapons, Train Dreams, Sinners, and The Long Walk. And the winner is Weapons. Some of the other nominees here, F1, I mentioned in terms of the montage sequences of the film and how exciting it was, and the energy of the film. Maybe a little bit too long, but some of the excitement of the races and the editing sequences is within there I absolutely loved. Train Dreams, I think, adds the sense of how do we tell this man's entire life in less than 2 hours? It has to be more impressionistic. It has to be more montage-based sequences, which Train Dreams does so well through some of those editings. Sinners is a movie that I want to include here, even though it's maybe not one of my favorite movies of the year. I absolutely loved it from a technical point of view and the crafts point of view. It's a super entertaining 2-hour movie that keeps you engaged the entire time. You're never bored. You go from one scene to the next, and there is a sense of just like old school classic filmmaking. I totally understand why everybody loves it, and I appreciate it very highly on that sense of construction, on the entertaining level, on the fact that there's not an ounce of fat, in my opinion, in the movie, a scene that doesn't or shouldn't exist. It's all there to tell the story and tell this really entertaining, fun vampire story. The Long Walk is another movie that I liked, but I wanted to appreciate in particular its editing. Just because you have an almost 2-hour movie where people just walk the entire time. There's very little location changes. It's a lot of just them being outside on these dirt roads, and yet the editing It keeps you engaged. It's still an entertaining movie. How is it an entertaining movie? Because it's edited very well. Because it knows when to go and to kind of group off with one couple of characters and their dialogue scenes, and then to bring in another character, and when to edit in their reaction shots, and then how much to show just people walking and then scenes, and the transition between a talking scene and then just a walking scene, and how long those should last, and how to show that days have passed and things have changed, right? It's all this is editing decisions. So The Long Walk, the movie I liked, in particular, in part because of some of the editing that was able to keep me entertained for what is a movie essentially of people walking. That's a testament to that film. But the winner is Weapons, because I was so impressed by its ability to keep me engaged, keep me tense throughout the entire film, but then also kind of continually go back to different characters. And it's a very difficult script in many ways, because you have a bunch of different characters' viewpoints in a Rashomon-esque style of a sequence of events. So of course when you're writing the script, but then of course when you're doing the final write-it, which is the edit of the film, what to show and what not to show. So how much, when we jump from one character sequence to another sequence, is it worthwhile to essentially replay a scene from another angle? Is it worthwhile to replay a scene from another angle? Or did we just see that scene already so we can cut that there? These kind of smaller decisions were essentially made perfectly, I think. Every single turn that they could have made, every time they decided to re-show a scene from another angle made sense. And every time they decided to not re-show a scene from another person's story made sense as well, while also adding color and things to the overall nature of the film, to add that sense of sleepiness of the town, but then that turned into town panic. To also, I think, the sense of tension within the film. There's a great, actually, shot deck interview between Zach Kreger and his editor, and actually another cinematographer who's done some other films, like the creator, I'm forgetting his name. But what they talk about is actually how David Fincher was really helpful in the editing process. And you can kind of get that feeling. It is a Fincher-esque kind of a film. And in part just because it's a bunch of small things within the editing. Like when you have a shot of a car pulling up, in their initial edit, what it seemed like was they'd have the shot of the car and then it would be empty, right? The shot of just a house, and then you see a car pull up and stop and someone get out. And then Fincher's suggestion was, okay, well, let's just cut when the car is already in frame, about to stop. So it's like, as soon as you cut to the next scene, you have a movement of a car who's already going to stop. And what they noticed is that by essentially cutting out 3, 4, 5 seconds here and there, and probably cutting, let's say, a total of 5 minutes, it felt like cutting out half an hour. It added to that sense of propulsion. And that's just a little industry trick of the trade, small things like that Fincher was able to bring. But you feel it within the movie. It feels repulsive. It feels energetic. It feels like you can kind of continually feel the pace of the film. You're never not entertained. And it is with a bunch of those small editing decisions. And then, of course, editing all these different interactions and these different characters, style of how they all intertwine at the end, is a testament to how clear and efficient the editing is. So I want to give big props there to, I think it was Joe Murphy who was the editor. So shout out to Joe there. Okay, now we're in the final 5 categories, the big categories. The first one being Best Screenplay. I don't do original versus adapted. I just do what's the best screenplays of the year, the heavy hitters competing here. And my nominees are Ari Aster, Eddington; Drew Hancock, Companion; Noah Baumbach and Ellen B. Mortimer for Jay Kelly; Zach Kreger for Weapons; Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. And the winner is Ari Aster, Eddington. So some of the other nominees here: Drew Hancock for Companion. I think just a genius idea, but also a movie that when you watch the trailer and you hear the title, the twist is kind of obvious. But you realize that there's actually a first twist and then there's a second twist. And the first twist happens relatively early on. And then, okay, it's about 30 minutes in the film, you get your first quote-unquote twist, which you saw coming. But then what's the next twist? What's next after that? And he surprises me with that second twist. So also just a really fascinating idea of a modern times, of a modern day kind of a set film with great performances all around, and a unique idea told very well. So I had to give out a shout out to Drew and his script there. And Noah Baumbach and Emily Mortimer for Jay Kelly. I think this is a terrific film. I think this is one of Baumbach's best scripts. And so many of these lines ring in my head, whether it be Laura Dern and Adam Sandler talking about the fact that, you love him, I work for him. Or Jay Kelly thinking, I made 3 years of movies. That has to mean something, right? Or all the kind of internal monologue that Raleigh Keough has with Jay Kelly. There's so many great kind of sharp, insightful moments of dialogue, or even in the trailer, I'm thinking about, when I see you, I see my entire life. There is this kind of meta commentary on movies and movie fans, but then also the purpose of life and missed opportunities and who do you commit your time to. And it is, I think, a genuinely dark and contemplative film that people don't necessarily give it a lot of credit for. It's not this sentimental, treacly garbage. It is, I think, insightful of resentment and regret. It's such a movie about regret. And I think Baumbach is able to capture some of that melancholy. And still, I think, has that biting nature and that acidic nature that he's had in some of his earlier films. I still think is in this film. It's just maybe not as obvious to some people, which is surprising to me. I really love the movie, and I think it should be in the awards conversation. It's one of the best movies of the year, with a great script. Zach Kreger for Weapons. Almost went with this just because what a unique story. And so fascinating to come up with this complicated nature of all these different characters and this storybook style of a story mixed with this true crime element and then a fascinating character in Aunt Gladys. All that is true and adds to a real sense of excitement within the film. Paul Thomas Anderson there for One Battle After Another almost winner. When I think about the movie, ultimately though, I think about its images, I think about the acting sometimes and the reaction shots more so than I think about the writing. But the writing, whether it be Perfidia Beverly Hills, a great name like that, or some of the great funny moments that Leonardo DiCaprio has, or even just that it's your dad line, which is a simple line, but within the context of the film is absolutely devastating. It's odd, got this oddball sense of energy. It is kind of quirky. It's got this kind of black humor to it, and yet feels original, feels unique, and doesn't feel too off-putting. It's this great combination of Big Lebowski and Terminator. If that's able to even make sense, he pulled it off here with One Battle After Another, and it starts with how this script is made and how it was ultimately told. But my winner is Ari Aster for Eddington, just because I think that this is such a unique script and film in the sense of it's a movie that is not designed to make people happy. It's designed in many ways to not care about the audience at all. And I think that's bold and interesting and different. I think there's so many great lines like, I am listening to you, now shut the F up. Or some of these great monologue sequences that I've already talked about. It's a great movie of images, but it's also a great funny movie of the year. Very sharp in its satire and very biting. I know this is a movie that put off a lot of people, but I think it's going to age very well. I think people are going to be talking about it for a long time to come, and I think people are going to be realizing how kind of brilliant some of these lines are and how the script is ultimately set up and where it leads to, and the excitement of there is also a twist of sorts in the second act of the movie where you go like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and then it goes into kind of like an action movie at the last, and it is a unique way to tell this story. It's not just a satire on politics. It's more about sexual shame. It's more about elitist globalists. It's also about how a small town can come aside at the facts. It's about how the big wigs and kind of certain people can control and manipulate other people and their feelings. And it's just a really sharp, insightful, I think, biting satire. And that starts in part with the kind of uniqueness of its script. Then, Best Director, I have Zach Kreger, Weapons, Paul Thomas Anderson, One Battle After Another, Mona Fastful, The Testament of Anne Lee, Noah Baumbach, Jay Kelly, and Ari Aster for Eddington. And my winner is Paul Thomas Anderson, One Battle After Another. So I talked about a lot of these directors just now in the screenplay category, but a lot applies here, whether it be Zach Kreger and his unique screenplay and his unique vision, combined with some of his great editing and the great performances he's able to portray within the film. He is a real standout film of the year for me, and in part because of Kreger's, I think, command of the film. And when I think about the movie and I think about his directing in particular, I think about it as a director who has the audience in the palm of his hands. Where there's one scene where you can literally go from being kind of unsure or kind of mysterious and following along and you're engaged to becoming really emotional, to becoming scared, to becoming laughing, all within about 30 seconds. If you've seen it, it's the dream sequence that Josh Brolin has where he's sitting at the side of his bed and he sees his kid and he's emotional because he's like, where are you? Where have you gone? And he's making you really emotional. And then there's a jump scare, and then you jump back to reality, and then he says, what the F? And it makes you laugh. And all within this 30-second period of time, you go from intrigue to crying to scared to laughing. It's like, is that not a great testament to what a director is able to do within a story, is to make you feel these emotions and to manipulate you in a good way, to feel engaged and engage with what the story is telling you. It's just a great kind of directorial command of control of the medium that Cregger is able to do. And as a director, that's why I want to recognize him here. Mona Fasthold for The Testament of Anne Lee. I haven't mentioned her just yet because I didn't include her in the screenplay, but I absolutely love the film. And I think she's found the exact way to tell the story, which is with ultimately honesty and sincerity. This could have easily been, I think, a episode of Drunk History, a funny way of telling the story. But that is kind of maybe the easy option, but the limited option. It's the easy option in the sense of, the jokes write themselves. And yet, that movie's only about 30 minutes long. Maybe it is only a sketch. What this is able to do is actually, what if we took it seriously? What if we took it sincerely? What if this is actually a unique, important figure who's maybe representative of the entire American whole? And what if we took her seriously and her ideals seriously? That's the harder thing to do, but maybe the more emotionally relevant. That combined with the amazing and beautiful, genuinely dance sequences, which she's able to do with collaborating with Daniel Bloomberg to create many great musical songs. This is a great musical, in part because I love all the songs and I like to sing the songs, but that they're not separate from the film. They're not devoid of the realism of the film. It doesn't feel like, we're going to stop for a musical sequence now. It feels like a natural extension of the way they live their life, of their preachable, of their gospel, which makes sense of why they call it the Testament of Anne Lee. And to get that performance as well out of Amanda Seyfried, and to all those elements that we've mentioned, whether it be the design elements, let's say, or the cinematography, to make it all look like a real lived-in painting and feel true and honest and representative. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, and almost won Best Picture. Spoiler, it didn't win, but it's just a movie that is, I think, very emotional, is very powerful, and it's just like wow. Cinema can be great. A total director in control that's able to use music and performance and story to have this overwhelming experience of emotion and ecstasy, and you feel that within the performances, and you feel their ecstasy within the filmmaking style. And the way Mona is able to kind of mirror that is a huge testament to her skill. Noah Baumbach, Jay Kelly, not only is he a great writer and does a great job here as well, but when you look at some of his scenes, there's incredible blocking within it, which is a lost skill, but Baumbach is able to do that. I think of the kind of kindergarten classroom scene with Riley Keough and Jay Kelly, where you have just a slow kind of a moving pan of the camera, but there's actual love blocking within it. She's not necessarily looking at him, she's hanging up things, she's talking around him, then to edit things to cut to when she does actually confront him and the powerfulness of that. He is a great director because he's able to know how strong his scripts are and create these great lines of inserts of dialogue, but then also add in, I think this is his best looking film from Lena Sandgren, have a great score from Nicholas Bertel. And then also he's able to block things well to add to his dialogue. That's not just a cutting line. It's where people are standing when they're saying those cutting lines or where they're kind of intersected. And then even the small things of how we transition from the real life to the kind of dream fantasy sequence, the kind of reflection sequences, and the transitions that he's able to do within those elements are so smooth, are so clean, are so precise. It shows how great of a director he is because he's able to mesh things together to create a unique kind of a script that has these challenges and then to come up with the ways to solve those challenges in the edit and in the directing style of his film. And then Ari Aster for Eddington, we mentioned it, but I think his great decision to make this film, his great script, and then also his images and his ability to create these distinct visual images, a huge testament to his ability as a director. And I think in many of his past films, it's like he's a horror film, right? But it's kind of a horror film, but he's trying to say something within the genre of horror. Now it's like he's just a unique filmmaker. What genre is Eddington? I don't even know. Is it a satire? Is it an action movie? Is it a horror movie? I don't know. But what I do know is it's unique, absolutely visually told, geniusly. And I think he's one of the best filmmakers working today. So even though people have soured a bit on Ari Aster, I'm still in the camp for him. I still think he's an exciting young director and really excited to see what he does next. And I'm just worried that he doesn't enter director's jail and he continues to get big budgets to make really interesting, fun movies, because this is a fun movie that's also saying a lot. And I think both can exist at the same time, and Aster's able to pull that off. He's able to make an issues movie that is about serious things and make it fun and make it honest, but then also not just talk about the 2020s and politics. It's more about deeper themes as well. I think it is ultimately about like sexual embarrassments, sexual shame. Like that's what I tell people the movie is about. But also having funny moments about the insanity of the 2020s and that time period of COVID. It's not just a movie about COVID though. It is, I think, it's still within, especially if you've seen the movie multiple times like I have, it's in of a piece of some of Astor's other films and the themes that he's interested in. But my winner is Paul Thomas Anderson for One Ballot After Another. This may be my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Right up there with something like Phantom Thread, which is also my winner in 2017. He's a filmmaker who I definitely love, but this was a huge step up for him, for me. It was always fascinating to see, like, okay, he's a $40 million, $20 million filmmaker. What if he makes $100 million? What would that look like? And turns out it looks incredible because he has the budget to make really exciting action sequences and engaging kind of storytelling. But then he's also able to utilize that and keep his sense of fun energy and his quirky, odd ball sense of humor, which is totally within the film. He's able to incorporate that. This is still a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. It's just a $100 million, $150 million action movie as well as being one of the best looking films of the year. We haven't mentioned the cinematography yet, but that is another element of the camera movement is so enticing and engaging, and he's able to keep up that pace throughout the entire film. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it doesn't feel like that. And then you think about some of the performances throughout the entire cast he's able to give, all of which are so amazing. And then even the score from Johnny Greenwood is so beautiful and so perfectly, an additive to the film. It's just a complete master director in control of his craft. I think this is going to be one of the movies he's going to be most well remembered by, and deservingly so. So Paul Thomas Anderson, I think he's going to win the Oscar, and I really hope he does because it's one of my favorite movies of the year. All right, now the final three categories here. Lead actor, lead actress, and picture. Starting off with the lead actress category, my nominees are Sophie Thatcher, Companion; Amanda Seyfried, The Testament of Anne Lee; Jessie Buckley, Hamnet; Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You; and Florence Pugh, Thunderbolts. And the winner is Amanda Seyfried, The Testament of Anne Lee. So, Sophie Thatcher here for Companion, I think is the standout of the film. Not only is a great kind of story with some great moments, and I've talked about that already in terms of how efficient the film is, it's reliant on a great Sophie Thatcher performance. When I think about her, I think about her covered in blood, immediately coming back after and looking at Jack Wade's character, to, realizing the fate that she's in, to going like trying to come back from that and saying, I love you so much, I'll do anything for you, and that's the desperation that she's so great at, to then becoming kind of like an action hero, surviving the second half of the movie, and her ability, like many great action heroes before her, I think, to communicate without dialogue, to with her eyes realize like, oh, I'm in danger, or I'm not in danger, or oh, what if I do this, and that, oh no, that won't work. Smart kind of elements that she's able to do. She feels like a great kind of charismatic movie star and takes over the movie, and I'm totally happy to go along with her. And she's a performer that I hadn't really seen too much before. Liked her in Heretic, but really liked her in Companion. Then I went with Jessie Buckley in Hamnet, which is a movie I liked, and I think she is so much to do with the fact of the success of the movie. Very emotional, very powerful within the film, but then also it can exist within moments of joy and moments of falling in love too. So she has a range of emotions within the film. I wanted to include her here. Rose Byrne, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Another kind of all-involved performance where you see she is just unraveling time and time again. She's trying to put it together and she just can't. And to see Rose Byrne, who's always been a great actress, but more recently I've seen her mostly as a comedic actress from The Neighbors or Spy or films like that, Bridesmaids. So now remind her again that, she still can be a really talented dramatic actress as well, and have that sense of anxiety, and just the fact that this movie is entirely on her face. Super tight close-ups, right? And you understand what she's thinking, and the kind of cracks within her psyche, the fact that she's being so overwhelmed, but she doesn't totally spaz out every single time. She just shows these small little cracks of her energy and the way she delivers lines of dialogue and the way she decides to raise her voice or doesn't raise her voice. All these smart, small little decisions that add up to really an exciting and domineering kind of performance here from Rose Byrne. And then my other nominee would be Florence Pugh for Thunderbolts, who I think, reminds us that, like, yeah, the MCU got lucky in getting her early when she did. This is the MCU movie really built around her growth of a character who is suffering from this kind of depression and lack of meaning in life, and understanding that the secret of all superhero movies is that they're essentially mercenaries working for someone else. And this is the first movie to actually combat with the idea of, like, how does that affect people? And in this case, it affects them negatively. And finding purpose and finding agency throughout the later the part of the film. This is a movie just like If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, where it's kind of like about depression and anxiety, more so depression and melancholy, and how you can kind of find a community and rebuild yourself and the hope that is in there. And Florence Pugh is one of our great actresses. And once again, even in an MCU movie, she's able to have delivered great kind of realistic action sequences, while also an emotional heart about the superhero genre in and of itself. Great in the film. But my winner was Amanda Seyfried for The Testament of Anne Lee. An absolute dynamite performance, all involving the level of commitment that she has is absolutely admirable. Similarly with Mona Fastfold, and the film generally wants to take Anne Lee seriously, doesn't want to have any sense of slyness or smirkness or like, we're in on the joke kind of an element. It's a total committed performance, a genuinely, I think, brave performance from Amanda Seyfried. Not only is she great in the kind of dancing sequences, but also can sing beautifully, but also understand that kind of charisma that a great leader is able to have. It's easy to write, oh, this is a super charismatic leader that's able to get all these people behind her. Then you have to have a performer to actually execute on that charisma. And she's able to have such a physical performance as well, communicate that ecstasy to you, to make you feel that similar way, while also understanding the kind of struggles and internal battles that she has when she gets back, and how she's ultimately, a leader, but a person of faith who relies on kind of God to guide her. And you see that in some of that internal struggle, more so in the second half, and that charisma and the energy of the first half she's so able to bring. She's been born again, and then in the second half it's more so about finding their way and getting their kind of footing within America and building this kind of new division of a religion and spreading the gospel, but also doing so in a way of trying to appease Americans and the war that's going on and their fight for independence, and trying to do things while also considering the external world, or maybe not considering the external world. That's what the movie's all about, and I think Seyfried is committed at both those elements of the unsureness, of the faith, of the exploration of that, but also of the ecstasy that can come with it as well. A beautiful film, and I think the best performance she's ever done, and one of the best performances of the year without a doubt. Now talking about the best lead actor category, my nominees are Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another; Josh O'Connor, Wake Up Dead Man; Lee Byung-hun from No Other Choice; George Clooney, Jay Kelly; and Ethan Hawke, Blue Moon. And the winner is Leonardo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another. So this category, I think, along with the best score category, were the two toughest categories for me this year. There are so many great lead actor performances that I haven't mentioned here. Joel Edgerton in Train Dreams, Channing Tatum in Roofman, Timothée Chalamet in Marty Supreme. There are so many great lead performances that I didn't mention that I all absolutely loved, which is a testament to the five that I ultimately did choose. And I think they're all absolutely standout, all absolutely dynamite. Josh O'Connor in Wake Up Dead Man, I mentioned earlier, is campaigning as a supporting actor. He's not. He is the true lead of the film. Benoit Blanc is a supporting actor. We are with Josh O'Connor from beginning to end. And I think this is the first movie where I saw Josh O'Connor and went like, oh, I get it. Like, I'd seen Challengers, I didn't really love it personally. But then seeing Wake Up Dead Man here, going like, oh, I get why everyone's kind of in love with him and why Spielberg's cast him in this new movie. Because there's a sense of struggle within the film and with this character. This is somebody who comes from, maybe a not Christian background, it seems to be implied, a boxer who became kind of born again and then became a priest after an incident in the ring. And you can see that kind of struggle and division within him of wanting to be violent and outwards and hating the world, but then trying to follow by Jesus's teachings of love and kindness and compassion, and that kind of struggle within him and that struggle within the situation he's in, and the fact that he's become overwhelmed by this potential murder being pinned on him. But then the fact that he's been wanting to be a priest and he has to fight his own, Monsignor within the film, and the kind of psychological warfare that he's struggling with. So he's able to be funny in the film and genuinely moving and heartwarming. And that's a rare combination. He's just an actor that you want to watch do stuff and want to watch him think. And so he's very charismatic in the film. He's very charming. He's very funny and very kind of quirky and got his own unique energy. But then he's also able to deliver some real hammer hits of emotion that really blew me away. Lee Byung-young for No Other Choice, a movie I liked quite a bit, but we won't be talking about for the rest of the video. The best part about the film, though, is his performance. Totally committed. Similarly, can be very funny and dry and has these just amazing, I would almost say like Bugs Bunny-esque or Wile E. Coyote-esque facial expressions within the film that add so much to the kind of funness and playfulness of the film. You truly see him as a man that is desperate for validation of sorts, and it's just a all-consuming type of a performance where he's in almost every part of the film and is able to deliver so much of that biting satire, so much of that funny element, in part just based on a really funny facial expression to something that happens or a funny way he goes about something. It is a kind of cartoon-esque performance that I really liked and haven't seen in a while, maybe since like, you know, other great cartoon type performances like a Jack Nicholson in Joker or Nicolas Cage in something like Raising Arizona. It's got that kind of an energy as well, which I don't think a lot of people have picked up on. George Clooney, Jay Kelly, another movie I absolutely loved. And it's so exciting to see George Clooney not be in movies he directed, because I think he's a pretty good director, but he's a great movie star and he's a great actor. I've talked about George Clooney a couple years ago when he had the monologue in Ticket to Paradise, and you see this glimpse of like, oh right, he's this incredible actor who can act anybody off the screen. Let's get more of that. In the same way, I thought Sean Penn was great last year in Daddy-O, and I was like, why don't we get more great Sean Penn? And then this year we get great Sean Penn in One Battle, and everyone's like, oh, I love Sean Penn. It's like, yeah, I was there, you know, a couple of years ago, but similarly here with George Clooney, I was there a couple of years ago with Ticket to Paradise. I was like, yeah, he still got it. Then we get Jay Kelly, and it's a whole movie of him still getting it. And I think is beautiful at able to showcase the movie star elements of why Jay Kelly is a movie star. Charming, looks like George Clooney. So he's very good at that, and Clooney has always been good at that. But I think he's also leveled up and given us more Michael Clayton-esque style performance here with the sense of regret and wanting to be charming, but then realizing it's not necessarily working on the people he's closest to him, and then wanting to be honest, but maybe not reconsidering himself and is still trying to be a little bit selfish and saying things like halfway and trying to come up with excuses for himself until he finally kind of admits who he is and his reality and what he's come to himself. Without fully getting there, there is this sense of never true revelation within his performance. There is always going to be this movie star charm, that he'll never truly know himself, that he's getting to know himself a little bit better, but that there's always something missing, and the people around him aren't necessarily going to help, and what ultimately he contributed is his movies, and that is his legacy, and maybe he wants another shot at it, but you don't get another shot at it. That's life. So a dark, heartbreaking kind of performance from George Clooney, and I think it is absolutely excellent in the film, and maybe his best performance. It's hard to say when he's such a great charmer naturally, but I think this is a charmer with more, which we don't always see with Clooney, and I was happy to get it. Then I went with Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon as my final nominee. A tough pick ultimately. This was my kind of fourth, fifth slot here, but I went with him just because I think he's able to totally take over a film, and that's what he does here with Blue Moon. Able to have these great monologues and these great speeches, but then also bring a sense of warmth and anger and frustration and regret. And some of that, the second part, is just through his eyes, it's just through his facial expressions. So it's a testament to the fact that this movie works because he's good at it and he's great in it and he's able to give these great extended long monologues. But it's also excellent because of Ethan Hawke and his ability to have that longing, that regret, that almost ability, the fact that he's the number two his entire life and never been number one, and that kind of deep sadness and regret that he's able to showcase in just facial expressions. I'm thinking of the Margaret Qualley scene in the kind of closet they have there. He's able to, communicate that, and that's without dialogue, and that's a huge testament to him. A great actor who's always been great, and I want to finally kind of reward him with a nomination here, because I don't know if I've done that here in the 10 years of the Connors just yet. But my winner for Best Lead Actor was Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another. And I think people, once again, every single year, consistently underrate DiCaprio. And that's fine, but I do think he's one of the best, if not the best actor working today. And this is a performance that I think he's going to be remembered with alongside a Wolf of Wall Street or a Django Unchained or a Jack from Titanic. he marries this kind of Big Lebowski-esque energy with genuine pathos and heartwarming and kind of a girl dad energy of a sorts. I think we think about the designing of One Battle and his kind of character costume of sorts. And that tells us so much about his character. But then it's Leo as a kind of gruffed, funny guy that is perfect for his kind of older age. I think it's the first time I remember DiCaprio being like a true dad of an adult children, and he can allows himself to be a little bit older. It feels like his Paul Newman in Color of Money kind of an element where this is a movie about romance, it's a movie about fatherhood, and I think it's just an absolutely expert comedic performance. I think he is so funny within the film. I think some of his gestures and manic energy are perfect within the film. His kind of spaced out energy when he first gets that call to say Willa is, being hunted, and physically even when I think of him running throughout the Battle of Acton Cross or crawling through his kind of tunnel at the back of his house, to even the differences. This is the second half of the movie is him being like this bumbling Big Lebowski-esque character. But the first half of the movie, he's more like nervous and shy and a little bit, clearly domineered by Perfidia Beverly Hills character and kind of shy. And to see the change in the performances, people don't always remember him in the first 40 minutes of the movie. It's a unique Leo. It's a Leo we don't always get to the second half, which is very funny and definitely my favorite part of his performance. But there is multitudes to the performance. To even, I think he does nail the emotion stuff at the end. Even though he's a bumbling character who didn't accomplish much within the film and didn't have much of an impact, he was there and he was able to provide some of that support and some of that love. So Leo, I think, is consistently underrated, one of our best actors, and gives an iconic comedic performance that I think people are going to be wearing Halloween costumes for many years. So I had to give him a shout and a nomination and the win. But here we are, the big category, 10 nominees in alphabetical order for Best Picture. These are my 10 favorite movies of the year, ranked in alphabetical order. I'll only be giving one winner, not ranked 1 through 10, but these are my 10 that I like the best. And my nominees are Caught Stealing, Companion, Eddington, J. Kelly, One Battle After Another, Resurrection, The Testament of Anne Lee, Train Dreams, Wake Up Dead Man, and Weapons. And my winner goes to One Battle After Another. So talk about some of the other nominees here. Caught Stealing, I haven't talked about too much, but I love that energy and the design of that world. I thought it was just a fun kind of a crime caper that we don't get too often. I think Austin Butler is great within the film. I think Zoe Kravitz is genuinely just amazing once again within the movie. Great kind of unique characters, whether it be Matt Smith or Bad Bunny or Liev Schreiber and Vincent D'Onofrio as the Hasidic Jews. And this is kind of odd crime crazy capper that you don't know where it's going to take you, and it's just a fun ride. And I think it's going to be a movie I'm going to rewatch a bunch of times too. So it's a movie that I thought, I was like, when I first watched it, I was like, you know what, that was fun. I like that. It's not going to be in my top 10. It's not serious, right? But it's just got this warm sense of familiarity and great characters and great story, and I just want to hang with it. And I was thinking a lot about it, and I saw it again, and I liked it even more the second time. And it's one of those movies where I just went, you know what, Connor? It may not be an awards movie, but you really liked it. You're going to watch it a bunch more. So just include it in your top 10 now, because you know you're going to eventually add it in your top 10 in 5 years when you've seen it a couple more times. Then Companion, I've talked a lot about. I thought just a very unique, engaging modern day storytelling, kind of an action horror movie with a great lead performance from Sophie Thatcher. Eddington, very unique film, a movie I mentioned already about sexual shame and embarrassment more so than it is about politics, but it also has some very sharp satire about politics in that unique time period of 2020, of COVID, of that collision of cultures, and how the phone is really the addition of our lives that has changed modern day world. So I commend Ari Aster for trying to attempt to, and successfully I think, tell a story about the modern day age and some of the best, most iconic images that will haunt me even more so than some of his horror films in this film here. J. Kelly, I think a secretly dark, haunting movie about a man's regret of his life and his family and the people he loved continually pushing him away, and the heartbreak that comes from that. Also being a sharp movie about Hollywood and what it means to be a star and how you can be yourself after losing yourself. Then we have Resurrection, a great vignette segment, kind of a short story-esque tale of the power of movies and cinema ultimately, with some of the most dazzling visual sequences of the year. I think about these individual stories so often, and I hope it gets on a Netflix or something like that where I can actually see it in these kind of chunks, because I just want to check out, okay, let's do the kid who's can see things and the little scam that's going on, or let's go to the monk scene and the coolness that's going on there, or let's just go to the great one-take crime caper that we have here. There's so many great little moments of celebration of cinema and great technical craftsmanship going on. I love Resurrection. It's long, it's Chinese. You may think, what is that? I'm going to skip it. But it is, I think, much more accessible if you're able to kind of commit yourself to it. Testament of Van Lee, I mentioned, I think is one of the most ecstatic films of the year. I love the songs. I think Amanda Seyfried is a genuine revelation. And I do think it is the best way to tell this story of a person with great ideas that has been affected by some of her past and uses that to empower herself into a new realm. And that also has some of that melancholy of reflecting on what you actually did with your life and some of the things you've accomplished or not accomplished, and whether or not how much of that is worth it to you in the end. Train Dreams, a beautiful film about a regular person's life and the beauty and joys and heartbreak of it all, with some of the best score, some of the best music, and some of the best visual images of the year, with standout performances from Joel Edgerton, Kerry Condon, and Felicity Jones. I also have Wake Up Dead Man, which I think is maybe the best Knives Out movie. It is a movie that with a great mystery, with a solid ensemble, maybe not as good as some of the other ones, but has a dynamite central performance in Josh O'Connor. And where the other first two Knives Out movies were about class, this is a movie about faith and a murder mystery where you're trying to find an answer, clashing with a topic of religion where you'll never know the answer. I think is a beautiful, perfect marriage, and I think Josh O'Connor is the best kind of a Watson lead character of all the Knives Out films, and a genuine revelation for me, along with, I just like the fact that these are murder mysteries, and I have lots of fun with the Knives Out movies, and the fact that this was a Knives Out movie with a fun mystery that is also more, that's also trying to say stuff about faith and the collision between answers and the unknown, and what it means to be compassionate, and how sometimes religion can be used and co-opted to something else. It is, I think, a really fascinating exploration, and actually a modern day movie in the same way Eddington is, or One Battle After Another is. It is a true modern film. Then I went with Weapons, my final nominee here, which is just one of the most unique, original, scary, funny, entertaining movies of the past 5 years. Totally excited to see what Zach Ricker does, because I think he's a director who's in total control and in the pocket right now. So excited to see his Resident Evil film. But Weapons was this really unique, fun, entertaining horror movie that I think we're going to be watching for many Halloweens to come. But my winner was One Battle After Another, a genuinely humorous, emotional, action-packed movie that feels totally unique in and of itself. I think it's an accumulation of many of Paul Thomas Anderson's films. Kind of has the relationship and two people coming together at this unique point in their lives, combination with someone like a Benicio del Toro and a Leonardo DiCaprio, but then it also exists with a Perfidia Beverly Hills and with Tiana Taylor and Sean Penn's character, Colonel Lockjaw. There's an element there. You have the best action filmmaking of the decade for sure in that heli car chase. You have this unique sensibility and humor. You have some of the best performances of the year with Leonardo DiCaprio or Benicio del Toro, or genuine breakouts like a Chase Infinity. And it's just a propulsive, entertaining movie that I'm going to be watching for a long time. It's rare that my favorite movie of the year is also nominated even for Best Picture, or maybe even could win it in the case of One Battle After Another. I hope it does from a personal point of view. But I think it's also a testament to how great this movie is, that usually my taste doesn't overlap with the Oscars. But the fact that it does overlap with the Oscars this year is because of how unique One Battle After Another is, how genuinely iconic and defining it will be to the history of cinema for the next 50 years. I do think that this is a film that people are going to be talking about as one of the best movies of the 2020s, as one of the best movies of the 21st century, and one of the best movies from one of our best filmmakers in Paul Thomas Anderson. It's just a classic film, and we got it this year, and everyone almost has to recognize it. It has to be critics. It has to be me. Even though I have maybe different tastes in the Academy or different tastes in critics, it's like it's nice that we can almost all agree that, like, well, this is a genuinely remarkable piece of work, right? And we all agree and it's all fantastic. It doesn't matter that it's a genre in action that people don't like, or it's got this weird sense of humor, or that's super long. It's like, it's about the modern day age, I think. It's genuine, fascinating, technical marvel. I don't think you need to engage with some of the things it's saying necessarily politically, because ultimately I think it's about a a dad trying to come back to his daughter and the power of family, which I think a lot of people can relate to. There's just so many different elements that I'm excited to explore for so many years to come, and so excited we got One Bell After Another this year. But that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know some of your favorite films and performances of the year. And stay tuned. Next week, we're going to be back with another Olds Oscar countdown, another video on the Oscars. So I hope you enjoy that. But until next time, stay tuned.